Yes.
I make it,
Yeah.
I make it 6 o'clock, members, so evening everyone. Any member or officer in physical attendance with an electronic device, please mute it to avoid feedback.
I had chairs and apologies. I have got my mobile phone on. I know most of you know I haven't got it. Because of a particular issue, health issue. I'll tell you that later.
Any remote participants, please keep your camera and microphone off unless you wish to speak. And ideally, do not use the camera facility as it can affect quality of the IT connection. Meeting may be recorded and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. Recording the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you do join using the link on the website or a mobile or tablet, it's not always possible to identify you and you may not be recorded as remote attendance. Can I please ask members who haven't got microphones, but if you can speak clearly and loudly, so that the members online can hear what you're saying. So welcome members, officers and members of the public to the extraordinary audit committee meeting. Following staff are in attendance: Director of Resources Lisa Fillery, Director of Regeneration Neighbourhood Emma Wiggins, Head of Audit Partnership Catherine Woodward, Interim Head of Planning Services Joanne Johnson is on remotely. Democratic Services for the Attaway. I haven't been informed of any other members that are in attendance or officers. You all know about the evacuation procedure.
Follow me.
Yeah, well, you have to follow me because I should be out the door for you. Is there anyone, no one in attendance with mobility issues? Are there any declarations of apologies for absence? Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just apologies for absence from Councillor Booth and Councillor Lee.
Are there any declarations of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? So we have just the one agenda item in front of us for this evening's extraordinary meeting. The planning outstanding audit action. I invite the officer Emma to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. You will also see that Joanne is online tonight. And thank you for the invitation to attend for this item. I felt, with agreement from the chair, that it was right for myself to attend, given that Joanne was not head of planning at the time, but is now. But obviously, when we look at the timeline to the reason for the audit action not being completed, so I didn't feel that it was fair for her to actually necessarily be here in person. However, she is here online because I think it's important to focus on, since the changes changes within personnel, what we are now planning to do moving forward. But notwithstanding that, if I can just remind members that the audit was taken and done within August 2021. It received a sound level of insurance and there were 8 priority findings. Notwithstanding that, there remains one high priority finding, which is the non-financial contribution, section 106, outstanding, and that is the subject of the this extraordinary meeting today. And what you will see in the report, and what I would say is that absolutely it is not appropriate nor expected to have still a high priority audit action outstanding. So that is not appropriate, and it's certainly something that we take seriously. What you will see within the report is a timeline of sort of explanation as to where the chronology of what did or didn't happen through the timeline since the audit was taken. What I would say is, in terms of non-financial contributions, the majority of that is affordable housing and open space provision. And they are actually monitored within the service areas relevant schemes and processes are in place to monitor those significant elements of the non-financial contributions. So what we're talking about here really, in terms of this report, is those slightly non-tangible contributions, but also, as you will see in the report, the system, the planning system really, by which the monitoring can take place. And I think when you look at the sort of reasons for not necessarily progressing as we would like to have done over the time, is the issue around the system and how we can monitor. So what you will see in 2.10 is the timeline with regards to this, the non-action. I would also sort of say, from my point of view, clearly, as director responsible for the service, I was obviously aware of the audit. Within that time period, as you can see, there were certain sort of external factors that were sort of hindering the progression. Notwithstanding, there were still conversations that took place with audit with the officers that were there at the time. What was happening at the time within planning, as I know some of you that were around at the time will remember, is a significant amount of change, a significant amount of issues with regards to performance within the planning service that I was dealing with. And as a result, you will know through the commentary that various officers who are no longer with us, and we have had obviously Joanne and Kerry Williams take the reins with regards to the head of service, but also the development manager. I appreciate that obviously hasn't happened until sort of recent years, but it was quite clear when you look at the resource that we had in place and the fact that we were trying to sort of find ways to deliver this action, that the resource wasn't in the right place in terms of that. What you will see now moving forward, and actually happened since the January of 23 when Kerry started with us, there was much more energy with regards to looking at what people have done, and not necessarily all of it being completed, but certainly changes that took place as a result of different strategic meetings and meetings to talk about the Execom monitoring system and ways in which that could be used whilst it's being used for financial monitoring, how we could then use that for the non-financial contributions. That work is still in progress, even to this point in time. But what I would say is that obviously there's been that focus. We know that the resource, as I said, was not necessarily there. But what we are doing now through the planning service restructure that will take effect from 1st of April is we have changed the structure so that we can actually focus on monitoring, but also business support. So it does give much more focus on the ability then to be able to not just take this up in terms of monitoring, but other things. So I think whilst it has taken a lot longer than we actually anticipated, and I would say, you know, the priority for me was very much around getting the right management within the system, which I do believe we have now. And as we move forward, I am absolutely confident, and as the report says, that come your next monitoring or your next audit committee, that this will be shut down through the fact that we've got that restructure in place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. All right, so I'll open up the debate to members. I've got Councillor Harrison first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As this was done to me, I was one of the original members who set up the audit committee. One of the recommendations of the external auditors at the time, we never used to agree on all, but some of them we did, and this was one of them. And having agreed to set it up, we decided we were going to do it properly, which we did. And we said very early on, there were so many things, the reports outstanding, because officers didn't take too much. Everyone was busy with their day job. Oh, well, that can wait, that can wait. What we said at the time is when we were set up and we had our first report of all these outstanding things was, right, anything outstanding after such and such, I want them at the next meeting. But the spotlight, the thumb screws, we're quite keen in these days. So, and to be fair to the staff, not one of those service managers ever came before the committee. But what we were doing was saying, we see audit as important. It's part and parcel of the way that the organisation works, the checks and balances. And our internal audit reports, I mean, we can't audit, we can't have 20 or 30 members go around saying, let me have a look at the books, Lisa. Just don't work that way. So you rely on these, three yearly looks, which the internal audit did. And we used to read them, inwardly digest and ask questions. So when we had that last meeting, and it was, really, I was getting the spotlight and the thumb screws out, to be fair. Especially, and I know one shouldn't say this, but especially when 106 is a trigger for members, because none of us think we get as much as we should do. So what diddly squat we've managed to acquire, we ended monitoring, and I know that it has happened over the years. It's been an issue for many years. Oh yeah, I've got this program. Oh, this will do it. That will do it. The other will do it. They never do. So it is a bit of a trigger word for councillors. Having said service managers, I had completely forgotten that Joanne was a recent appointment to that service manager post. And frankly, if she doesn't put them into shape, I don't know that anyone could, because I do rate the woman. If I didn't rate the woman, I wouldn't say a word. I'd keep it zipped. So I'm very pleased that we've got this report tonight from Emma, laying it out, because I think that's all that perhaps should have been gone to what we used to have once we got this. You'll be before the committee review outstanding. Is we did just get a report. Oh, we're waiting on this. IT have got to do us this program. We're doing our best. We're chasing them every week. Fine, that's acceptable, but not complete void. And I know I wasn't on this committee for the 3 years I sat on cabinet. It was awful because I really loved it. But now I am back on it. I'm hoping that we will get it back up to where it needs to be, which is a very high profile for the authority. Because if you don't get the audit right, if you members don't keep an eye on things, sounds awful. If members aren't on top of it and supportive of the internal audit service, then things can go quite awry. So I'm pleased that I did raise it. Say sorry, it was Jo, because I forgot she was quite new. And I hope that going forward there won't be anybody else here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Councillor Palmer.
No, I don't have much to say. I think thank you very much for the report and the honesty with it. I think there's always lessons to be learned from anything. It would be perhaps helpful to have it brought to the attention of the audit committee, but I can understand why Angela asked for it, and now you know the reason you're not out for your birthday. I think that's down to Angela. But I think you're quite right.
Your birthday.
Oh, you told me to keep that quiet, didn't you? Sorry.
I'll get your plate.
But I do feel, I think the information in there is quite concise. It answered a few questions that I've been wondering about, and I do concur. I think with Jerry and Joanne, I think the planning team will be in good hands there, and I don't say that lightly. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Yeah, and I totally understand why we're here and what we're looking at, but as I think as Emma's already pointed out, the majority of the non-financial elements, significant elements, are monitored, just not by the planning team. And I think there was perhaps a bit of lost in translation between the way the audit report was drafted, what came here, and the change in personnel over that time. That kind of knowledge wasn't necessarily shared as it should have been. So I think Catherine and I have been speaking about how we can improve our reporting to audit committee so that some of these things are covered off. I mean, if things are still unresolved or the recommendations haven't been delivered, we've got the proposal that was agreed last time that officers will be here if it might come within 6 months but if there is good reason, and I think there's still some outstanding elements from previous audits that might need revisiting before they come back here, because there's some question of whether they're the recommendations for those who are now responsible for them actually agree with how they're written. So Kathy and I are going to be working through some of the older outstanding recommendations to review those, and so that we can provide an update, and that the updates are a bit clearer so that we can see where there is a real area of concern and where there isn't.
Anyone else?
Can I just add, just to clarify or confirm the point Lisa was saying there, we are sort of working towards a new process for us internally on monitoring some of these, but just for information, at this moment in time, there are only 4 audits with recommendations that are being worked upon. Some of them are not even due at this moment. So in the grand scheme of the work we're doing with the organisation, the fact that there are only 4 audits with recommendations that are still to be resolved with action plans in place, I think it's testament to the work of the management team. And this one did slip through the cracks because of a lot of the issues potentially with the resourcing, but generally speaking, from a bit of internal audit's perspective, I have no concerns in that regard. So it's useful for me to let you know that this month.
Councillor Sir.
Thank you. Can I just firstly apologise for my lateness to the meeting? I do apologise. Why I think that, for instance, it's great report, fantastic, and I specifically want to attend this evening, the assured meeting, because for my own benefit as a new member, it's really interesting to come across these things that kind of started pre my membership of the committee. And one thing that I wanted to ask about was for my own benefit, was that one of the first things we looked at as a full council was a key indicators to see whether the council were being successful or not. So this sort of process for me is really interesting. Is there anything that, for instance, the audit committee could do to affecting those key indicators? What it does maybe say to me is that, for instance, say we weren't successful at election time and really key experienced councillors haven't come back afterwards, how can we make sure, for instance, that we're robust, that we haven't kind of got a system that would have allowed this potentially to have slipped through the net if we didn't have that experienced councillor make up of our membership? Does that make sense?
So did you want to say that?
I think so. I think the key performance indicator is about the recommendation of it that have been followed up. I don't think that really provides enough detail for the audit committee. I think the reports that internal audit bring to this committee that should highlight that. So the detail within that should be the thing that you focusing on, and where we are not performing or where they're not being delivered, that should really be highlighted in those reports, which it has been before, but it just hasn't really been picked up. And I keep reiterating this point, but I think had the recommendation been really detrimental to the council on an ongoing basis, then we would have picked that up. I think it was probably one that we didn't see as crucial to getting in the way of getting the planning service fixed in other areas. So it's now part of that process with the restructure. But I think with Kathy's reports that provide the updates on the internal audit progress and the outcomes, that's the bit that we need to focus on, or that you need to focus on, and draw attention to and discuss at the meeting.
On this particular issue, I have had experience in the past where honestly, because it's been agreed non-financial contribution 106. It's left and left and left and left, and then the developer goes bust, and we're singing in the wind because we ain't had it and we ain't going to get it. There's also been cases where things were agreed in as a part of 106. They weren't done. I think one in particular. Be lines of corners, part of a thing, and they've done. Like 10 years down the line, no, that's been done. I put it on a map. I can tell you, I remember there's no sign of a WL, and never has been. Well, they're no longer in business. Well, it's really needed. Swell ends up coughing up for stuff that other people should have sorted out. And I would probably give you loads. the huge I-Wake development that, I don't know, 15 years ago, was it 20 years ago? You know, we managed, as part of the planning committee, pushing officers to get a list as long as you're on. 10 years later, you get the parish clerk coming along saying, is anyone monitoring this? Because, you know, most of this we're not. They're already up to, you know, 6,000 houses. So it is important. It might not be money being handed over, but the stuff that has been agreed, it isn't agreed lightly. I know this. I'm not going to get into the planning committee, but I know that over the years, because members have pushed, we have got stuff that was not offered. We've negotiated. And having done a lot of hard negotiation, to then have nobody monitoring that we're going to get, that we've got it, it does. So that is a particular one, but you know, we've never got something where we say, hey, what's this one? So yeah, 106s are very dear to our hearts, but I think it was good report, it was good explanation. And you see, that's the sort of thing, to be fair, Catherine, in the past, where things were a bit delayed, they didn't wait for members to read the report. So, but I've got a mark here, it was actually in the front of the report saying, and you will notice on page 66, this is in outstanding for X, the reasons are, so you didn't wait for us to jump down your throat, you actually pushed it in our face, which is what we designed. Yes. Yeah, and that's fine, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's a very good report. It's very transparent and honest. And I think it was being on the audit committee for all the years I've been on it is that with new members coming into the training, and the trainings get more involved, and these type of things that are missed because of, you know, resources and that can be explained to, especially the new councillors. So all in all, I think you've done a very good job. Thank you.
Councillor.
So I'll ask this question. It's probably a big council you can tell me it has nothing to do with this. I'll accept that if that is the case. But a question that has been raised through a number of different meetings that I've attended is 106 is very enthusiastically discussed, absolutely. But does this leave any sort of questions around the NHS contributions that, for instance, are supposedly part of a planning application, but we also don't often see materialise after the planning application has been done. All of these agreements have been kind of this is
So they're using financial ones,
fair enough.
and we're just custodians of those, but we might hand
I do
over.
apologise. No, I'm not part of the planning committee, so
Through you, Chair. It's a minefield, Dolly, so please don't, there's nothing like a silly question, and it's absolutely on our radar. Through the local plan review process, we'll be looking at ways in which we can make sure we can secure 106 that we need for the infrastructure moving forward. It is difficult with 106 in terms of how you calculate it. This is more the financial than non-financial, but the formulas involved, you know, it's very difficult and are set, some of them, and require the NHS to then take, you know, to be involved. So it's certainly on our radar, and Councillor Harrison tells me that every time I see her, and we know that we are making sure that we can secure what we can, you know, and there are parameters, and you know, as you sit on the planning committee, it's not easy, but we will do what we can. And I think absolutely taking the points that I've heard tonight, we already knew through and that's why we've spoken about the restructure, because there are a lot of other things that we haven't been able to resource in terms of monitoring, because there's been just a focus on changing the structure, but also the DM applications. We needed to put a different structure in place so that we can then think of the back end of that, which is what we're doing. So hopefully, you know, we will be able to see the differences once that structure is in place and embedded. So, and if not, we can come again. More than happy to attend other meetings to talk about it. Thank you, and it's a good question.
Kenilton's question, to be fair, when he sat as chair of Minster, this is one of his very big topics of conversation. So yet again, we're seeing, for instance, that experience being passed down to potential new members. And obviously it only became a big issue because Minster has obviously seen so much development So it's really great to get this sort of thing sorted, because obviously we know development will come to other areas and they might have similar questions based around this process and where that money ends up.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, no, the work report is really quite good. Explains a lot. There's a lot of good processes being listed here, sort of strategies. I was just wondering if there is or will be a limit identified to say it has gotten to this point now, it's gone on this long, that it has to be done by that time. Sorry, I'm searching for the right vocabulary here.
I think from talking with the team, the restructure and the new roles come into force at 1st of April. We don't anticipate the results of the consultation of that restructure changing or affecting this. So ultimately, I think what we are saying with a good degree of confidence, Joanne, is that the action will be complete by the next review. So I imagine that.
But applying to future actions as well.
This is the one outstanding for this audit. So other actions will be within our service plan for planning generally. But in terms of this action, we hope that our next review will be able to show that we've got the systems and the process in place.
I think we've now got sort of a bit more safeguards put in place that have been minuted. So obviously, Kathy, you've got those minutes, so your team will be on top of those. Brilliant. And yeah, Emma, thanks for the report and thanks for coming on. Thanks for being online, Joanne. We've just had one more thing to work. Which is, I have a proposal that we note explanation of the completion. I'll take Councillor Harrison as the proposer, Councillor Parnell second. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance.
Thanks.
You know, it's worth it.